everyone. Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. I'm Darren McBreen, sitting in tonight for Alex Jones. It is Thursday, February 16th, 2012, and here's a quick look at what we have lined up for you this evening. Could the U.S. and Israel be planning to launch a false flag terror attack to be blamed on Iran? Tonight, we'll look at the history of government-sponsored terrorism and the likelihood of a conflict igniting in the Persian Gulf. INFOWARS producer John Bown also reports on the psychological warfare and operations behind false flag terrorism, known as the Hegelian dialectic. Then, the unthinkable, surviving a nuclear disaster. Author Matthew Stein joins us via video Skype to discuss the apocalyptic scenario of a worldwide nuclear meltdown during a massive solar storm. All that and more during the next 30 minutes or so. But first, we have breaking news from Detroit, where the underwear bomber Patsy faces life sentencing today. Umar Farouk Abdul Muttalab, the Nigerian man accused of trying to detonate an explosive device in his underwear aboard a Christmas 2009 flight to Detroit, well, he pleaded guilty to all counts in court on Wednesday. He had previously pleaded not guilty to the charges, and he actually vowed to plead innocent. He was going to call Detroit area attorney and eyewitness Kurt Haskell as a defense witness. Haskell, of course, witnessed a sharp-dressed man helping Abdul Muttalab get on board the plane, and this mysterious, well-dressed man helped the underwear bomber clear security despite the fact he had no passport. Haskell maintains that Abdul Muttalab was carrying a fake bomb and was the unwitting dupe in a case of government entrapment. And Kurt Haskell joins us now live via video Skype from Detroit to bring us the latest developments on this case. Now, Kurt, thank you for joining us. I know you've been a prominent skeptic of the government's official version of events that day. What went on during the sentencing?
Well, you know, today was the day for sentencing, and it was a mandatory life sentence. So Judge Edmonds sentenced Umar to four life sentences without chance of parole. So it really is a life term.
Now, I understand that there were 5 witnesses called to the stand. What did any of the other victims, did they have anything to say?
We weren't really called to the stand. What happened was every victim of this crime had a chance to make a statement before sentencing. So only 5 people decided to do that out of 289 passengers, I think.
Imagine that.
Yeah, imagine that. And Lori and I were 2 of the 5. So besides us, there were only 3 others. And Judge Edmonds put a limit on it that we can only talk 5 minutes each. So I've been making a very, very compacted statement to try and fit it into 5 minutes, you know, that I wrote earlier this week. And I gave my statement today, basically ripping on the government as I've been doing for 2 years now.
And that statement is posted on our website, Infowars.com. And I also remember that you posted in your blog back in 2011 that you decided not to file a lawsuit. Can you tell us why?
Yeah, you know, that was a really hard decision. I went back and forth on it. I'm going to file and I'm not going to file. I'm going to file, I'm not going to. And every time I'd work on the case, I would figure out that it was much more time consuming than I thought it would be. You know, I thought it'd be fairly simple, and every time I'd look into it, you know, there'd be this law and that law and this law. I mean, we're talking about international law, aviation law, things I know nothing about, and I was spending a ton of time on it. And that was one of the reasons, but also when the NDAA was passed a month or so ago,
yes, I
was really not happy with the reaction by the American public. I thought, to me, the NDAA is maybe the worst law ever. Well, up there with the Patriot Act anyway.
Agreed.
I thought there should have been picketing in the streets, you know, people going crazy in Washington over this, and there was basically nothing. And that got me thinking, well, does anybody really care if I file a civil suit against the government in the underwear bomber case? And my thinking was no, except for the people that are already caring about what I do. And so that was reason number 2. And reason number 3 was that President Obama appointed a bipartisan commission to study the economy, and they came out with a report about 2 months ago or 3 months ago, and every single person that was in the committee indicated that the U.S. government would collapse, and the U.S. would collapse economically no later than fall 2013. Mm-hmm. And obviously, if I had filed a lawsuit against the government, it would most likely take longer than that, number one. Number two, it got me thinking that maybe instead of spending so much time on the lawsuit, I need to spend time preparing to move to Costa Rica, as I've had planned for several years, and save as much money as I can to do that. So it's a combination of all those things.
Well, sure, and fortunately, at least by going up there and giving your statement, I mean, you are getting some national attention. The Detroit Press has quoted you. They also say that you still believe, and this is in the Detroit Press today, that Kurt Haskell said he still believes a federal agent gave Abdul Muttalib a defective bomb to carry out on the plane to create an incident that would cause the government to install full body scanners at airports nationwide. So by you coming out and reading statements like that, you know, at least we're getting some national attention about the body scanners. But in closing, I wanted to ask you if there's anything you'd like to share with us about the court case, about the jury, the whitewash, or even the event itself.
Yeah, a couple things. One, you know, when I made my statement today, Judge Edmonds was not happy with me. She was pissed that I made my statement today and said what I did. Obviously,
did anybody warn you not to make this statement beforehand, or did you get any kind of bad, you know, vibe, like, man, I shouldn't be doing this, or how was the climate when you went in there?
I didn't tell anyone what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Nobody. Except for your show. I did tell your show with instructions to not post my statement on the internet until after I gave it, for that reason. I didn't want anyone to know what I was going to say because I thought Judge Edmonds might try and stop me.
Sure.
Now, when I gave my statement, I intentionally wanted to get some sympathy in the hopes that Judge Edmonds would not cut me off. So what I did is I thanked the person that saved my life, who was also there today, the flight attendant that put out the fire, which kind of choked me up a little, and to get some sympathy so that she would not cut me off. And she did not cut me off, which was my goal. But she was very, very, very pissed, I could tell. Mm-hmm. And Lori gave her speech after I did. And Judge Edmonds asked her before she went up there if she was going to talk about the government being involved before she got up there. Wow. So I thought that was kind of funny. About the case itself, though, one thing still really bothers me, and that's, you know, Umar pled guilty to a mandatory life sentence. So why would you do that? Not only that, you know, nobody pleads guilty to a mandatory life sentence. If you take a plea deal, there's some give and take. You know, you take a lesser charge, or, you know, maybe there's some leniency in your sentence. There was nothing there. The plea deal was taken 5 days after he announced that I'd be testifying on his behalf.
I remember, yeah.
5 days later, he takes a plea to a mandatory life sentence. No way. No way does that happen without something else going on here. Sure. I don't know what it is. I don't believe it. I think there's some kind of deal going on that we don't know about that isn't being reported. I don't know what it is, though. Not only that, but Anthony Chambers, the standby attorney, told me that there were very lenient plea deals on the table all along, going back over a year. So why would someone turn down a lenient plea deal to take a plea knowing you would get mandatory life sentence with no chance of parole? That's the question I really want answered right now. You know, we'll never get an answer, but.
Yeah, true. And he was obviously influenced in some way. Well, we certainly thank you for joining us. We appreciate you coming forward. Your involvement in the case has undoubtedly shed light on, you know, possible government complicity. And without you speaking out, the historical details would have never seen the light of day. So I admire your courage. And, well, may the Lord protect you, sir.
Thanks a lot.
All righty. Okay, so once again, the Patsy gets life in prison. No big surprise there. Continuing with our top headlines, Big Sis admits that the U.S. does not face a terror threat from Iran or Hezbollah, despite all the hype drummed up by the establishment media about a scary Iranian or Hezbollah attack on soft targets in the United States. The Department of Homeland Security has admitted that there is no specific threat facing the country. DHS boss Janet Dungbeetle Napolitano was obliged to admit that no such threat exists. She said, however, that there is a threat that bears watching. Meanwhile, CNN and the establishment media have enthusiastically hyped Israel's terror narrative by running reports and stories speculating an attack on Jewish targets inside the United States. The medical establishment is firing patients who refuse big pharma, big government vaccines. This is an article posted in the Wall Street Journal where they mention a study of Connecticut pediatricians published last year says that some 30% or 133 doctors said that they had asked a family to leave their practice for vaccine refusal. Can you imagine? And a recent survey of 909 Midwestern pediatricians found that 21% reported discharging families for the same reason. Well, now two can play at that game. If your doctor or pediatrician wants to inject you and your children with toxic chemicals, then you fire them and find yourself another doctor. I suggest that you can learn more about the dangers of vaccines. Go to vactruth.com, do the research yourself. I'm sure you'll make the right decision. Now, before we start talking about false flag terrorism, I want to take you to a piece that was put together by our very own John Bound. He's a very talented writer and producer here at INFOWARS.com, and he's going to educate us on the Hegelian dialectic. And he's focusing on the psychology behind government-sponsored terrorism.
The global banking cartel has used one tried and true process to create wars, rob us of our currency, and eat away at our substance. This process of control over the masses is called the Hegelian dialectic. So what is it, and how is it being used today? German philosopher George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel devised a dialectic, or method to resolve a disagreement between outcomes. The dialectic is made up of three attributes: thesis, an idea or opinion; antithesis, the opposite idea or opinion; and synthesis, the alchemic process to bring together a wanted change. It is commonly referred to as order out of chaos, and is waged against the masses in many forms. Saul Alinsky, self-avowed Marxist, proponent of the Hegelian dialectic, published this in Rules for Radicals. Any revolutionary change must be preceded by a passive, affirmative, non-challenging attitude toward change among the mass of our people. They must feel so frustrated, so defeated, so lost, so futureless in the prevailing system that they are willing to let go of the past and chance the future. George Bush became the hero of 9/11 simply due to the fact that he was the president, and then rammed through legislation that threatened our liberties as we all complacently stood by and allowed it to happen. A manufactured crisis occurs, thesis. George Bush answers it by rallying public opinion and becoming the host of the tragedy, antithesis, thus owning the crisis through synthesis. Equilibrium is attained. All of the once separate parts of the plan are joined together. In this example, the Patriot Act acting as the equilibrium on the desired road to tyrannical fascism.
Hegelian dialectic. Then the unthinkable. Surviving a nuclear disaster. Author Matthew Stein joins us via video Skype to discuss the apocalyptic scenario of a worldwide nuclear meltdown during a massive solar storm. All that and more during the next 30 minutes or so. But first, we have breaking news from Detroit, where the underwear bomber Patsy faces life sentencing today. Umar Farouk Abdul Muttalab, the Nigerian man accused of trying to detonate an explosive device in his underwear aboard a Christmas 2009 flight to Detroit, he pleaded guilty to all counts in court on Wednesday. He had previously pleaded not guilty to the charges, and he actually vowed to plead innocent. He was going to call Detroit area attorney and eyewitness Kurt Haskell as a defense witness. Haskell, of course, witnessed a sharp-dressed man Hello, everyone. Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. I'm Darren McBreen, sitting in tonight for Alex Jones. It is helping Abdul Muttalab get on board the plane, and this mysterious, well-dressed man helped the underwear bomber clear security despite the fact he had no passport. Haskell maintains that Abdul Muttalab was carrying a fake bomb and was the unwitting dupe in a case of government entrapment. And Kurt Haskell joins us now live via video Skype from Detroit to bring us the latest developments on this case. Thursday, February 16th, 2012. And here's a quick look at what we have lined up for you this evening. Could the U.S. and Israel be planning to launch a false flag terror attack to be blamed on Iran? Tonight, we'll look at the history of government-sponsored terrorism and the likelihood of a conflict igniting in the Persian Gulf. INFOWARS producer John Bown also reports on the psychological warfare and operations behind false flag terrorism, known as the Hegel.